Welcome back. For a lot of people, the thought of negotiating with someone fills them with absolute dread. At some point, most of us have felt that we could have got a better outcome if only we'd pushed for more during the negotiation. If you've ever felt that way, then you're not alone. A good way to get around that problem is to read the new book, I Love Negotiating. It's full of tips, tools and strategies for business negotiations. I'm glad to say that the author Sam Trattles joins me now. Sam, thanks for coming on the show. Firstly, congratulations for getting the book out there. What was your motivation for writing it?
I've worked in corporate roles negotiating for my whole career and I really love it. Unfortunately, at the same time, I hear lots of people tell me that they hate it. I hear it constantly, intelligent, bright, brilliant people, and that really upset me. And then I did some research on it, and about 87% of people are apprehensive about negotiations. So I thought, what can I take from corporate negotiations and put that into a guide that can help people take away the stress and make it a little bit easier to start enjoying it.
It's interesting you say that. I've had people work for me who really hated negotiating, and they really told me about that too. It seems to be a common issue. Why is that, do you think?
I think it's something, unfortunately, we don't learn in school. We have to train ourselves how to do it. So that's probably leads us to be anxious about it. It leads us to feel, have a lack of confidence. We've grown up with price tags, and we typically don't have opportunities not to use them until it really matters. So it's a really tough one.
Now, in your opinion, what makes for a good negotiation? What's the best tip you can give?
In simple terms, it's a fair and reasonable exchange of value. So if we're negotiating, I have to explain what's the value to me. If you explain the value to you, and we need to be flexible, and then somehow we meet in the middle. If we can't meet in the middle, we just have to walk away, because what I value something at is different to what you value something at. It's pretty simple.
It's interesting. Some people come away from a negotiation almost feeling ripped off. How do you ensure that you don't come out of a negotiation feeling that way?
Yes, that's common, and I think the first bit is to change your mindset. Shift away from thinking about it as a negotiation and make yourself feel more comfortable. So you build that confidence straight away. It's just a series of choices that you get to make as part of a conversation. So if we can take that to one side, that's part of it. And then the second part is letting the other person lead. I think it's important to use silence, and then you can check yourself, you can relax, and you can actually listen to what they're saying first, and then rebut to that. So don't lead it yourself, because otherwise it's harder for you.
What's the number one thing that people can do today that will change the way they view negotiating?
I think it's the number one thing. I talk about this in the book very early. It's about changing. It's not about winning. It's called a win-win often, and I think there's a challenge with that, in that the brain actually hears the word winning and it thinks about losing. And what happens inside your brain is that you actually start to think about fight or flight. This all happens without you knowing it, so you actually need to shift that. So if it's not about winning, it's about that exchange of value and expressing that, then that should reduce it significantly.
In your book, you say there's 4 negotiator profiles that people can identify with. What are those profiles?
Very briefly, there's 4 profiles. The avoider, so people like my mum, I guess, who she says, I just would like it to go away. Don't do it. I don't care if they say that they'll negotiate. They just want a price tag, that's fine. The most common profile we find in Australia is the dabbler, so people who will give it a little go, but then they'll recoil. So it's very uncomfortable for them. So that's the target audience for the book. Next are the adventurers, so they'll give anything a go, which is great. However, sometimes they'll push a little too hard, particularly in business negotiations, and that's where we see people fighting. So what we need to do is actually get them back to that reasonable exchange, and then they move to mastery, which is really people like me who do this for a job. What I ask of masters is please just share it back down the chain. You know, the best thing we can do as negotiators is help others, and then they'll find it less stressful. Final
question, we're getting to the end of the program. When people are in the middle of a negotiation, they're feeling very stressed, how do you reduce that stress level?
Again, I think it's about taking a moment. There's lots of things going on in your mind. You're quite stressed. It may be a lot riding on it. The main thing is that there's a lot of emotions tied up in things. If you can check where you are emotionally and then step back and say, hang on, okay, am I making rational decisions or am I making emotional ones? That's probably the best one.
Well, Sam, it's a great book. I really enjoy reading it.
Thanks.
I Love Negotiating. Come out now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.